You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped! Yes! And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to The People's Pitch, the first, the only, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. As always, I am your host, Nate Morales, joined by the Affleck to my Damon, its City co-founder, John Bisworm. John, with the big game behind us, the big game, there's only one thing going on in the sports world, and that is Minneapolis City. Am I right?
I mean, in my world, yes. My kids' soccer's done for the winter, so there's that. So yeah, you're right. The only thing is Minneapolis City, and tonight is dedicated to Minneapolis City's first signing of the 2024 season. It is a city vet that is sure to get people excited. For the first time in almost 7 years, we've got Max Kent on the show to talk about what he's been doing since he moved out east, reminisce about the good old days, and look with us into the future that will start in the 2024 season.
Yes, let's do this, John. Engage. Maximum Kent. I looked it up. I forgot about the van episode, but it was 201 episodes.
Yeah, we did call
48.
We did call it Maximum Kent. That was the name of the episode. So
yeah.
I'll let you nerd out a little bit on that one again. It's okay.
That's a good one. It was 201 episodes, like you said, episode 48 to be exact, that tonight's guest first appeared on The People's Pitch. Max, you were a bright-eyed college freshman. You were enjoying your first year at McAllister College. And since then, you have found success in NCAA Division III, Division I, and U.S. Lower League Soccer, earning NPSL All-Conference Awards in 2018. Max, you're back. You're living in the cities, and you're back with the murder. I am incredibly excited to welcome you back to the show. It is Minneapolis City defender Max Kent.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, Max, I can say this. When we saw each other about 2 weeks ago at Winter Park at Futures Training and kind of locked eyes, it felt like we were in like a rom-com scene where we rushed towards each other with like two smiles ear to ear, arms wide open. Was so happy to see you, man. And even happier that you're back with the murder.
Yeah, it was awesome. No, I mean, it truly was like Matthew McConaughey circa 2008. Except you were like the blonde girl in every one of his movies. And I was just falling head over heels for you.
Oh, no,
it was made in Manhattan all over again.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Exactly. Yeah. I was gonna go with what's the one where he's like doesn't move out of his parents' house.
Like How to Lose a Guy and something.
No, or what is it? Something like Struggling to Leave or some movie like that.
Wow.
But no, anyway, it was great to be back, and it was awesome to see Biz. It was great to see Pribble and Matt and the whole gang, honestly, top to bottom. The funny thing is, as Biz was alluding to, I've been training with the Futures since moving back to Minnesota, and while the players are all, I feel like an old guy now. Seeing some of the older guys, coaches and staff, just makes me feel just so at home and really, really excited to be back.
So some quick stats before we dive into the hard-hitting question that the people want to hear. So you were part of 2 NPSL North Conference titles and 35 career appearances with the club, which puts you just below getting onto the website. So I think this season you'll be able to help get yourself up there on the website in the career appearance category. But you have 3 goals and 2 assists, and those are some decent numbers for a center back at this level, Max.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll be the first one to say that I don't put my hat on scoring goals. It's not what I would say my strength is as a soccer player. But it was an incredible run, and after I finished, I tied the boots up one last time at Cuse and left in 21. I thought to myself, like, it's a little sad that I'm finishing my soccer career not in Minneapolis with City. And when the time and the opportunity arose to come back to the cities for the spring and summer, I thought, I'm in good shape. I've been training a lot, doing a lot of running and keeping my mind fresh. Let's see if I still got it. Let's pick back up where I left off. And so, yeah, super excited. Can't say hopefully there's more goals in store this year.
Let's just try to get one more.
One more is good.
Sneak one out.
Yeah, one more is good.
Max, correct me if I'm wrong or if I've got my timeline wrong. But after the 2020 season was canceled due to COVID, you mentioned it. Yeah. You went to Syracuse. You found yourself with an extra year of college eligibility, and you used it to great effect. You appeared at Syracuse in 16 matches. You started 14 of them. You scored a goal in a 3-1 win over Virginia. You scored another and had an assist in a 5-2 win over Vermont. You helped lead the Orange to a 2-0 shutout versus then number 6 Clemson. What was that process like, making the jump from McAllister, which, if I'm honest, is a fine but not flashy Division III program, all the way up to Division I and like a super competitive environment in the ACC? Not many players can do that.
Yeah.
Not many players can do that, and for sure, not many slide into a starting role with that kind of success.
It's a good question, and I frankly want to make sure that everyone kind of knows like the challenge that comes with it. So I got to Syracuse, like you said, right, like at the heart of COVID. So 2020 was the first fall I was at Syracuse, and while COVID canceled most NCAA games, some may know that the ACC continued to play a 6-game schedule in the fall and a six-game schedule in the spring. So we got 12 games throughout the year. I appeared in 0 of them. I didn't play a single minute. It wasn't even like, he's right there on the edge, like, maybe coming in with 20 minutes left or, finishing the game out. No, like there wasn't even a hint that I was going to get on the field.
Wow.
And I was the oldest on the team, right? Like I was 22 in a group of guys who were 21 and below. And so it's a massively different environment. And, I look back at that team actually that I first was, at Cuse with, there's guys like DeAndre Kerr who are starting at Toronto FC next to, world-class players like Insigne. You got players like Abdi Salim, Giorgio Krzyzewski, Noah Singleman, like basically our whole backline and midfield units winning a national championship the next year, and now playing, like in the MLS.
Yeah.
That was the level, and so it was only those numbers that you just said didn't come until I spent a whole year getting faster, stronger, more technical, quicker with everything in my game. And, I just turned out a whole different player after a year of being in that environment. And so, nothing like I thought McAllister gave me an incredible amount in terms of soccer and education, but I had a new appreciation for, development and level when I got to Syracuse for sure.
Am I safe to say, Max, that – oh, sorry, Nate, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how did you – go ahead. You go ahead, John, because I think your question will lead into mine.
Okay. Am I safe to – excuse me. Am I safe to say, Max, that on top of what you took away from your time at McAllister, that Minneapolis City helped maybe close that gap between the competitive levels of Division III and Division I?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like I think there's a lot of, I mean, I think the level at City is incredible, and like the MPS at that point when we were playing the NPSL, like, you know, there was definitely very competitive games we had. There's also games where we rolled over teams pretty handily.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think actually what the greatest development was for me was getting the chance to play with, you know, City, you know, legends, right? Guys like Steve, you know, Ian Smith and Max Stiegwart and Whitney and Martin Brown, and, you know, playing next to guys who had played at high levels like Mark Height and, you know, Matt Murakami, and guys who were like going to push you day in and day out. And when you went to training, like you had to be, you know, turned on, because if you're not, like, Will Kidd's going to just like burn you and you're going to look dumb. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, look, the guys who I played with at Cuse, like, you know, that's a different level. Like, no, there's nothing that City nor Mac can prepare you for when you're going up against a guy who has a 40-inch vertical and runs a 4.2 40-yard dash. Like,
or guys that are in their country's, like, international setup.
Right, like guys who came from Bayern Munich's academy and Leicester City's academy. Like, it's really hard to come from Minneapolis United and be like, yeah, that's where I played club. Like, and so, like, it's a little bit different. Like, the level just is a little bit, and so it's humbling. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, I think guys like Eli Goldman, guys who are you know, Herbert, all these guys who played at these high levels, you know that, you know, it's just you play against some of these unreal kids who play in the national teams, who played, you know, overseas, and so I do hope that, like, the message is clear, is like, look, Minnesota's getting better at soccer, but we still have a ways to go to really start, like, competing with, you know, the rest of the country and the rest of the world.
Did you find yourself doubting your abilities, or did you find yourself getting down on yourself when you were riding the bench for, you know, the fall season, the spring season, and just being like, man, I thought I made this team for a reason?
Absolutely. Like every day, especially that first fall. Like, I was just, I would be lying if I didn't say I was just, like, you know, a day closer to quitting. But then, you know, I actually, after my first semester, after 6 games of riding the pine and never, you know, having any idea when I was going to play next, thought I was going to quit. Like, I went home for school or from winter vacation, thought I was going to quit. And I had a really great talk with, you know, my parents, both who played, you know, Division I soccer, both who were really great athletes. And it was my mom who said, you know, just enjoy it, right? Like, it's like, soccer is a gift. And Biz, you say this all the time, like, soccer is a gift. And the fact that, like, you're at this school, you know, in this environment, getting to play the game you love at such a high level is like a dream that most kids, you know, would kill for.
Oh, for sure.
And so from there on out, like, that second semester, I didn't even, like, expect to play. I just went in to, like, enjoy it, work hard, like, enjoy the game I loved, because, you know, who knows, you know, what the rest of when I was going to stop. And, you know, it just ended up that attitude just carried over, you know, kept me in, like, got me excited for the next day. And so there was just that whole attitude shift of, like, you know, it's a gift. Nothing is given. And, you know, just the fact that you're having the opportunity to be in this environment is a privilege in itself.
Nice. Yeah. So you finally get, I shouldn't say finally, so year 2 of grad school, you break in.
Yeah.
What do you think changed?
You know, well, one, it was just, I think we had a change in personnel. You know, we had guys who were coming, going. We had a big injury to Abdi Salim, who at the time, you know, was just a standout player. I mean, he came in from transfer from Buffalo, University of Buffalo, who now is playing at Orlando. He tore his ACL going into that year. And so, you know, they were like, we gotta put somebody in there. And so let's put the veteran guy who's been here for a year, knows our system.
Let's just put the guy from Minnesota in. What's the worst that could happen?
And I always say this, like Ian McIntyre is has a really distinct coaching style where like it's high pressing, high flying, like attacking style. And center back, like in his system, like you'll see one of the three center backs kind of making these big runs forward or bring the ball like pretty high, playing pretty high up the field. And he gave all the center backs pretty good liberty to like play with the ball and go forward, except the guy from Minnesota, the big lumberjack in the back. And so my role is very much just do your job of like not losing the ball, winning headers, and just talking. And yeah, so I mean, look, I wasn't a flat, like my role there was not to be the guy, right? Yeah. Like my role was to be just be a role player, lead, direct, and just be a role model for the younger guys. I mean, at that point, I was 23 or 22, right? 23. There was kids coming in who were 18, 17 at even, and so there's 6 years of difference between me and the next, some of my teammates. And that's a massive responsibility in the locker room as well as on the field to manage that type of team environment. So yeah, I mean, look, I was just trying to make sure that goals weren't scored on me, and at times I did my job well, and sometimes there was mistakes, and that's just the game of soccer, and you just kind of keep rolling with the punches. But yeah, it was a great experience, and it took way more out of me mentally than McAllister at times, because my life was 80% soccer and 20% school. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's what kind of said, after the fact, I was like, you know what, it's time to lace the boots up one last time and give it a rest and move to DC and try the running thing. And did that for 2 years and said, you know what, all right, I've had my good hiatus, and let's get back to it. Yeah. So yeah, that's where we are. That's the Syracuse bit, I think, basically.
So fill us in a little bit. You mentioned moving to DC. You mentioned becoming an avid runner. What have you been doing since you left the nest? What did you graduate? What did graduate school lead to? Are you calling mom and dad's house home right now, or are you in your own spot? Like, fill us in there before we start to dive into some more Minneapolis City stuff.
For sure, yeah. So I went to Syracuse to get a master's in public administration. They have a great public administration program there, kind of similar to what some may know as like the Humphrey School at the University of Minnesota. Just a really great program, and finished there and immediately went to DC to work, in consulting, which is a fancy way of saying just doing jobs for other companies in their quantitative economics team. And so I moved to DC in the spring of 22, and I just kind of landed there, had some friends from earlier walks of life at McAllister who introduced me to this track club called Northeast Track Club, and just kind of fully dived into that culture. And and actually it's like hilarious that I'm even talking about this, because when I found them, right, like it was the most like city-esque type of running club I could have found. Because I felt like everything they were doing was like what city felt like in those early days, where a little bit of bootstrap, a little bit of like, we're kind of just like, we're trying to figure this out like as we go. And, we're embracing, like their whole slogan was like, embrace chaos. And, they managed every week to actually, tonight's one of their Track Tuesdays, our big Track Tuesday events, managed to get 300, 400 people to do a track workout on a 4-lane track, which when you look at the, videos of us doing it, it's just kind of surreal. And so, yeah, like made a lot of friends there, and, my life kind of just revolved around running. And later on, I met a group of people at this local gym who were like, you should get into coaching, strength and conditioning, because I was pretty big into that as well. So I got, my coaching license, and got into strength and conditioning coaching, doing like group classes.
Mm-hmm.
So my life in DC was, working a lot, running a lot, coaching a lot. My current girlfriend in DC, and yeah, like everything, really was great. And eventually my girlfriend, kind of was like, hey, I think I want to go to grad school. And I was like, that might be a good reason to go back home for a little bit, reconnect with family, and then before making a decision of like maybe where to go next.
Yeah.
So that's what leads me back to Minnesota. And at the moment, yeah, I'm living with the parents back in Minneapolis, and yeah, I can't really complain. It's as much as I never envisioned myself living with my parents at 25. It's really nice to be back with family after 3-4 years of being on the East Coast. It's, as much as it feels easier and easier these days with technology to stay connected, it's not the same as being in the same proximity as the people you love. So yeah, I'll be here through the summer, and then who knows what's next.
All right. Well, we've got you for one more summer. That's going to have to be enough for some people, maybe. Most guys, Max, when they've been away from playing the game every day. I know this. I'm just kidding. But most guys, when they've been away from playing the game at a high level, they come back and they figure out they've kind of lost a step. And we've seen it from a few players. Although when you think back to the NPSL days, even guys who John and I announced as signings, and we thought they'd be great at the NPSL level, and they just hadn't kept sharp. They just couldn't. I mean, they couldn't keep up even then. So besides the obvious fact that you're a superhuman miracle of nature and that you've been doing nothing in DC except consulting and running and
building your body,
screaming at people while they lift weights, soccer's different. How do you jump back into soccer like you did, coming from that to pretty much straight into Carl Craig's team?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Well, and look, it's never easy, right? And I'm not going to be the one to say that it's just going to come back naturally and that you find your touch, because you're right. Like, it's not something that just, you get back on the field and it's there. It requires a lot of work, and I've been working, since kind of I started this journey back into the squad, earlier in the fall, to like really get sharp, and just training every day, getting lots of touches. While I was in DC, I was playing on, kind of like what we would be the equivalent of like, our Division I NPSL league here in Minnesota, with a bunch of guys from, local Division I teams there, and just kind of staying around the game, and have no, the attitude I come in with at this stage in my career is nothing is given, right? I'm not here to expect to be given the same amount of clout as I had as a player a few years ago, and expect to have to fight for my position, week in and week out, and lead by example in that way. And so, if I don't have it the first week, you bet your ass that I'll, work my way to make sure that I'm in a position to prove that that's, that I should be playing or that I should be contributing and helping the team.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a good question, but it is, I do think that there is an ounce in there of, you kind of never lose it.
All right.
But
it's kind of like Randall. It's kind of Randall Cunningham-esque, right? Like, last week he was tiling floors, and now he's back throwing it up to Randy Moss. You might be too young for that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I cannot tell you what you just said. I cannot. I have no idea who. I have no idea.
What about Kurt Warner? You know his story? No. Damn. Anyway.
Nate, just move on, dude.
What I think of it is like Roger Federer, right?
Okay.
Like Roger Federer didn't get like really into tennis until like he was 16, and then he won like his first Grand Slam at the age of like 20 or something. Like, it was like a few years, and so like I think if I had been sitting on the couch for the last few years since playing and I wasn't in great shape and whatnot, it'd be a different story. But let's just say I'll take on anyone in the beep test right now. And that I can tell you I'm pretty confident in.
Nice. Have you talked with Coach Craig about your role this year and what he's hoping to see from you? Because I can say, like, one of the things last year that was clear was that we were frequently outsized. I think every club had at least one bruiser that really caused havoc on set pieces, or a big striker that was able to break the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I haven't had the pleasure of talking with Coach Craig yet. I really look forward to working with him. He has an awesome reputation and an awesome, a lot of experience. But yeah, no, I think that's exactly one of the roles that I hope to play. I really think I'll be leaning on the experiences I took away from that last year at Syracuse to help lead this team. And I say that meaning just what I said at the, kind of outset of what my role was. And that is, direct, win balls, be the one to, organize the defense, and, let us play, like be the first, start of attack, and help, make things happen, in front of us rather than behind us. So, I'm looking to learn as much as help lead, this year. And so, I'm going to keep my mind open and fresh to how he wants to structure his team. But yeah, lead from the back and make sure that we're not conceding as much as possible, and winning some, like John said, trying to pump those numbers up on goals this year would be pretty great.
Just one sounds good.
Just one.
So we, obviously we before this news broke, most people thought that the Kent torch had been passed to your brother Nick with his stellar performances with the Futures team over the course of the last two seasons. He's about the same age you were, maybe a little bit older when we were way back when you first joined us via an open trial. He did have the luxury of coming through the Futures program. Have you been following his trajectory? And how did it feel over Christmas during the holiday camp for you guys to line up with him? And then maybe that potential prospect of you wearing the city badge together in like a meaningful match this summer.
Yeah, no, and look, I think he's developing incredibly well. When I saw him in the fall, the first thing I said is, "Damn, you're tall." And I think, like I said, we're kind of cut from different cloths, and I think we have some similarities and we have some differences, and I think we can both learn from each other and how to improve as players. I think he possesses some kind of God-given traits that I won't be able to replicate, and I think similarly, like I think I probably have traits and a personality that's slightly different than his, that will benefit the team in a different way as well. And so if I would be lying if I didn't say that one of the big drivers for me to pursue this, very early on, really at the beginning of last summer, was to play with him. He is really developed into not only a really good soccer player at this age, but developing into an exceptional young man, and want to do everything I can in this at this age to start building that relationship with him as a teammate, because basically our entire lives I've just been beating up on him.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question. Have you ever played with him before, other than pounding on him in the backyard?
No. This is literally like the first time that we will be like teammates, which is a pretty surreal feeling. And it was an opportunity that I really just couldn't say no to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you'll be I don't know. I'm not going to foreshadow into the future signings of our general manager, but if all the stars continue to align, you'll be the third set of brothers that have have played together in the club. You can say like maybe fourth if you count Nick Hutton and Mick Hutton. But that was more the COVID year when his brother joined. But yeah, that's something to be excited about. And I think for the club in general, like there's not I don't think that there maybe is any other club at this level in the country that can say that in the history of their club they've had 4 sets of brothers play together.
Yeah, no, exactly. And look, like I think it goes back to like maybe a more fundamental piece to why I wanted to come back to City, and that is, I do care not about the mission of this club and what it always was from the outset was player development and player development and player development, and even though that meant a lot of focus on what you're doing on the field, I actually felt like what we ended up getting was lessons about what you do off the field, even more so, and that comes in the form of like friendships and professionalism and and championships, and
all the ships,
trophies, and so like I saw this as like an opportunity to be like, look, like I get to be around my brother at this like incredible moment of our lives where like rather than just skipping over like our 20s and just moving on to like the point where we're 40 and like reminiscing on the past, we can actually like talk, like start making like the stories up that we're going to talk about later on in life together.
Ooh,
and it's just going to be really cool. It'll just be a really cool time to be around each other and to push each other and to banter at each other. So yeah, no, it'll be. I'm stoked for that opportunity.
That's great.
No halftime swirlies if he doesn't perform next to you, okay?
Yeah, no, I'll just pants him as he walks out
in front of like 2,000 people.
Holding hands with a child.
Yeah, nerd.
Max, I took a listen to your episode. It was number 48, way back in 2017. Is right when you first joined the club, and I got a little. It was funny because like you were talking about all the stuff like having just joined and getting to know like, wow, the supporters actually care, but they're also very weird, and like there was a big social media following, and I thought that was really funny to hear about. But I got a little emotional hearing you talking about growing up playing with or against guys like Goose or Steve, and how you just wanted to learn from older guys like Ben Wexler or Brian Coleman, Charlie Adams, Aaron Olson. Those are guys that you just kind of called out in the course of the episode. And now you are coming into that role as the guy who has been there. You've played at a high level, but I'll tell you, I'm sure you're finding the environment is a little different. Like this team is full of guys that played on D1, as opposed to back then. There were like so many more doe-eyed college freshmen or even high school seniors. Like, what has your approach been so far in some of these like winter trials and trainings in terms of getting back in the saddle and like reintegrating with other experienced players? Do you feel like the veteran that you are, or is it almost back to rookie mode?
No, I mean, it's definitely not rookie mode. Like I think, look, like the attitude I've been bringing to this is, kind of where I left off at Syracuse. I took a lot away from the group that I got to play at Syracuse, and like that same group that I left went on to win a national championship, and it was because of the attitude that they had, that they approached the game with, and that they approached life with, that got them there. Didn't also help that they did some pretty nifty recruiting of some Premier League level players, but what I'm going in with this season is being like, look, I'm approaching every session, every game, every involvement with this club as a professional, and as if it's Champions League final, right? And that was the lesson that you learned from the guys who played at a very high level, whether it was Brian Coleman, whether it was Goose, whether it was Ian, whether it was guys who had, national team experience like Martin and, or even guys like Ba who, kind of project a very chill attitude, but at the end of the day, right, get after it.
Yeah.
The culture has to remain the same, right? Regardless of the talent, like the level, and where people play, and the fact that we have, more Division I players, to me, it just says that we have to work that much harder to prove that we're worth coming to watch. To some degree, with the club that I was part of at City during those 3 years, it was, wow, like we get to go watch City. Like,
yeah,
no more. Like, that's not the culture, right? Like, we got to prove that it's worth coming to watch us every single time that we step out on the pitch, and we got to show, like, I mean, people pay good money to like watch our semi-professional club play at Augsburg Stadium, and that's not like it's not like we got like fancy, we got bleachers. So let's make it worthwhile for them to come and like have their kids have their family come watch, and show that we care, right? And that we will fight and fight and fight, for the supporters. So
I want to quick interrupt you and put a pin in that cultural point, because I want to talk about that more in a second. But what I want to come back to really quickly is just I don't know if any of these other guys, and this is just me, I'm gonna pump you up a little bit here. I don't know if any of these other guys have sat on the bench at a high level program, really, you know what I mean, and just been like, you know what, this is what I'm gonna have to do every day, and this is how I'm gonna get through it, and then you're rewarded by it, right? Like, so there is a level of experience that I don't think anybody had or has had in the history of the club that you're bringing to this team at this moment. When you talk about, how do you talk to a guy like Griffin Gierci or Carson Pena or some of these guys that are playing D1, but they were starters as a freshman. Szynski starters as a freshman, getting minutes, right? It's really like, what do you do when you struggle that really creates that really helps create the culture of the team?
Or there's guys that struggle to play and sit the bench at lower level Division I schools.
Mm-hmm.
There's some of those as well. And it's not because they're bad players. And, some may say that some of the players that we bring in might not make other USL 2 rosters. And that may be true because we're selecting only local. So there is a lot of adversity that some of these guys are probably don't know about, but also some adversity that they're also going through. And this is their opportunity to play.
Yeah. I just love that, being able to like impart that wisdom on some of these younger guys.
So leading into that, you were a huge part of, we talked about before, and you started to get into this. So I wanted to quickly move this question up our show sheet here. So you were a huge part of like really our most successful teams in club history, multiple league titles in the NPSL, shared some really big moments with us as we grew what we are into today. Recently, Nate and I have talked about that we've seen the club's top team kind of hit the skids, not only from a performance perspective, joining the USL 2, where we saw winning's a lot harder to do. Like, you just can't roll a good team out there anymore because every team's good. But part of that has been what some players have told us is a lack of focusing on playing for the club and not yourself. You started to get into that. Can you talk a little bit more about the brotherhood that you were a part of during your first pass with the club? And then you started to get into it, but what are you passing along from a message perspective? Not just like what it means to play for City, for the fans, but what the expectations are as a player, beyond doing it for the fans. Because basically there's a void of any of your old teammates in that locker room that know what it was like when we were building this for what they have now as far as a platform. Yeah.
Well, look, we got work to do. Like, it's not just going to come from one message that one guy says. It comes from being part of the community and seeing the community. I think if I just draw, if I just think about the team that was those teams that won trophies and that, kind of cemented City as this club that we think of it now, most of the guys played local college soccer, right? They played at Gustavus, they played at, Superior, they played, Matt Elder at Superior, Murakami at Gustavus, like you could, Olaf, Mac, Carlton, like, guys were
Division three St. Thomas.
St. Thomas, right? Division three St. Thomas, Augsburg, like guys lived and breathed the Twin Cities and in their most formidable years as young men. And so there was all the motivation in the world to fight for the city. They knew what the city was about. They knew what the people of the city were about. Kids who are from the Twin Cities and then leave for college and don't do the growing up and the maturing in Minnesota, but instead in Milwaukee or in New Hampshire or in what other Indiana or whatever other city college town they go to, you lose a little bit of that identity. And so to some degree we got our work cut out for us to show that, like, to reignite the identity with the city and with the fan base. And so I know that one thing I'm focused on with, hopefully the support from the club and with, leadership is to say, like, let's get these guys back out into the city and know what they're fighting for. Get them walking up and down the streets of Minneapolis, and talk to supporters and talk to people who, are coming to our games. Go talk to Gunnar over at Twin Cities Barber Co. and get a cut from him and understand why he likes the club and start to understand why he pays to have his barbers come to the games before, to get people lined up. Like these little things that we didn't take for granted before. Go talk to Sarah Schreier, who works her tail off while also working at McKinsey, and be like, how the hell do you do all this, right? Like how the hell are you doing all this? That I think cements a different place in someone's heart when they're playing the game. It's not because somebody like myself is yelling at them and saying, protect the badge or, play for the badge. Like that doesn't work. You gotta like help them understand why we love this team, why we love this club, and why we love the people who support us.
Is that a Max Kent original, or did you pick that philosophy up from McAllister or Syracuse or another place that you've played?
That would probably be more of a McAllister piece, but I think it's also just like, Minneapolis, right? Like Minneapolis has a lot of rich history in who we in our in identity, and we've had some really tough years as of late in terms of coming to grips with social justice and the landscape post COVID, and even before both of those events, how we positioned ourselves in the world as this kind of niche up and coming city is something that we've always been proud of. And it was something I was proud of when I said I was playing for Minneapolis United as a kid and Minneapolis City, as a college player, is saying like, this is a really cool city and there's a lot going on. And, it might not be LA and it might not be New York, it might not be Miami, but for the upper Midwest, it's pretty awesome. And the people here are really the gem. And when you find that, like, you have a good, like you're wearing the badge of the people that are good, man, it's like that much easier to work hard, and kind of give your everything. So, look, I think it I don't know where it comes from, but I can tell you that the first time I was, I ever played for City, I mean, I don't even think I started. I think I was on the bench, but we were at Augsburg at Eder Nelson, and I saw those fans roll up, and again, like we had some good crowds in McAllister, but not nearly the rowdiness of City games. And I saw people like really showing up and chanting the whole time and wearing cap masks and crow masks and pounding on drums. Like, I was like, this is exactly this is quintessentially like the environment that I want to be a part of, and like the people that I want supporting me, and the team that I'm a part of. So look, I think it's trying to relay to these young men that like this is an incredible opportunity, not only to be playing at a high level, but to really be like, asking questions, developing as a young man, like, trying to be part of something bigger than yourself. Because there's more people in this community than you really can understand that are ready to help and want to help, shape you and help, support you.
Dang, dude, do you need a job in public relations and messaging? Because Dan has a very low paying one.
Yeah. Some might say
that was so well said. I don't want to trivialize it. That was just so well said.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm a transplant. Obviously, it's well documented that I'm not from here, but I had every opportunity. I've had multiple opportunities, obviously, to go back to where I am from, which is in southeastern Wisconsin, which the Milwaukee area I feel is a lot like Minnesota, where it's very unique. It's the people that make it. But living here and starting this whole thing with Dan and Nick, and then seeing where it's gone and all the stuff we've done with Stegman's, and you're 100% right. Like there's way more to it than I actually thought that for people to be engaged with. I still don't understand the support that we have. When there's so many other things out there that people could be doing, especially in the summer months in Minnesota. Like I understand that we struck a chord with people that are hyper focused on local, which was not like a sell tactic. It was a platform to say like Minnesota soccer is not it's not a flyover state for people from Illinois trying to go to a different state where there's better soccer. Like there's good soccer here. So give it the platform. You mentioned it, before. It might not be where other places are, but it's getting there. But I didn't understand, like, once we built it, like that people would actually care. And then you get people like Paul from the Citizens, and like he comes and he and his wife come and check people in at our open trials. Like they don't have to do that. Like that's the stuff that I used to do. And I still would do if we didn't have anybody else. But it's like, it's just people putting in their volunteer hours. And I think you're 100% right. And trying to find a message to deliver to a young group of guys who are just like, whatever, this is my summer soccer team I'm going to play on. And I'm playing for a former pro head coach. I'm close to home. It's comfortable. I think you're right, Max. I think that's the message that a lot of these guys need to hear, is that it goes beyond soccer, and whether you believe it or not, it's true and it's happening.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I think made me that much more excited about this opportunity is to say, like, look, as much as we may as much as the narrative around the younger generations kind of is, look at them, like they kind of they're kind of think everything's going to be put in their lap and fed with a silver spoon. Like at the same time, like there's a lot of good things that could come from a different perspective, right? And I think I'm excited for there to be kind of a fusion between what our old what we hold as truisms and values at the club that won't change regardless of who's in there, with some of the new kind of attitudes of the younger generation, right? Like we might find that like younger guys are just they're probably way better at social media than all the guys that I played with in 2018. And it unlocks, we could have the Taylor Swift effect of the USL too. And like all of a sudden we have like just somebody on the team who's like super good at social media and just blows up our social media. And all of a sudden we're like the Savannah Banana Slugs or whatever I don't know if you guys know them, like the baseball team.
Baseball team.
Just like, who's just like massive on social media. And all of a sudden we have like a whole different, our fan base is like, all of a sudden a little bit different. Like we got a different generation or different, people, different types of people checking us out. But I think at the end of the day, like, it is recognizing that, like, well, all that kind of new, everything that's new is good to like test and see, and whether it's a net positive, it's really important to get in touch with what makes this club, city, like what makes it its best self, and what are the values that we carry forward regardless of who's takes up positions.
Sure.
And hopefully I can be a good steward of those values and of the mission at large.
Well, Max, I'd line up to buy a ticket from you. So you got one follower.
Max, we spoke really, we kind of dodged in or dove in and out of this idea of like the talent level here. Not quite there yet. You've seen it, at Syracuse, what talent really looks like developed in other parts of the country. But you were the first player after, of course, after the first year when everyone did it, but you were the first player to make the team from an open trial. Just cold, showing up. This guy's good enough. Let's do it. How does the talent at the winter camps that you've been to measure up to those first year trials? Because I know you were here around Christmas. I saw you on the social medias. I was like, "Ooh, who's that back there? Max Kent. Interesting." But there's a lot of other talent that are of guys that are trying to make this team or interested in becoming a part of Minneapolis City. How does that talent measure up to some of the people you went up against in your first year? And what do you think that's a product of?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question it's better, right? I think it's a product of both the level in Minnesota getting better. I also think it's just the product of city attracting better players and getting a better notoriety around the state. And I think we can safely say that, Minnesota's getting greater notoriety across the country. Of course, maybe not the same clip as other places, but, as much as I like to, shit on Minnesota United like the next person, having an MLS team here has definitely changed the landscape. And I think it attracts a different pedigree of player and gets kids playing earlier than we, when I was growing up. Like, having Minnesota Thunder was great, but it didn't ever force you as a young kid to start having them ask the question, like, you're good, maybe good enough to play academy. Should you continue playing basketball, running track, and playing soccer? Right, hockey,
right?
like all these.
What are you? Yeah, exactly.
So, like, I'm the first one to argue for, like, raising your kids to play multiple sports and, like, be, multi-sport athletes and have a lot of different, experiences and teams and whatnot. Now, that doesn't also mean that if you're just a gifted soccer player or you're a gifted basketball player, you shouldn't, like, take every opportunity to, excel in that sport.
You're not talking to Joe Mauer.
Yeah, I'm not talking to Joe Mauer. Like,
you know who he is, right?
That name rings a bell.
He's no Randall Cunningham, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Joe Mauer probably would have been a better quarterback than Randall Cunningham. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. You were on a roll.
No. And like, look, I think the city guys that were there in the winter during the winter trials were great, and it's just outstanding how good some of the future players are and the guys who are currently in college. And it's exciting to see the MIAC continuing to improve. And for example, the Olies winning it this year with Justin at the helm was super exciting to see. And just the rest of Minnesota soccer really thriving has just been an awesome thing to follow as I've been on the East Coast.
Well, Max, thank you so much. I can't tell you how happy and excited I am to have you back, taking your rightful place as the towering fortress that holds the back line together for Minneapolis City. I'm sure we're going to talk more over the course of the spring and summer, but until then, I just need you to stay healthy and get ready to head some goals home, man.
Hell yeah. Love it. Appreciate you guys.
All right.
Looking forward to everything.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Max. We'll maybe I'll see you at training on Friday.
Yep. Sounds good. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Well, yeah,
Thank
take
you.
it easy.
Cheers.
Well, that'll do it for this week's show. Thank you to our wonderful show sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Our friends at footballstadiumprints.com are always expanding their soccer-focused t-shirt designs, prints, and more. Don't forget to use the code CROWS10, that's CROWS10, for 10% off everything you purchase. And remember, all U.S. orders ship right from the United States, so there is no pesky international shipping charges. As a reminder, excuse me, Minneapolis City is a 501c3, so you can feel good that your membership doubles as a charitable donation to a club that does good. Memberships for the 2024 season are on sale now. Make sure you cement your seat in the stands and get some sweet swag, all for a price that destroys other clubs' price of entry. And it might be going up soon, so act fast. Head on over to nplscitysc.com and get yours today, tomorrow, as soon as you hear this. Remember, you can always find us on Twitter X at The People's Pitch, or you can even email us if you have any questions or topics you want covered on the show. We haven't had any of those in a while. mcscpodcast@gmail.com. Of course, you can also connect with the club on Twitter X at NPLS City SC.
Sounds more metal.
Twitter X. That is all for this week's show, folks. I am John. That, of course, was a lot of Max Kent. And, of course, my show co-host, the Nate Morales. More early player announcements are around the corner, and we are ramping up to inject more sweet preseason news and interviews directly into your veins. So get involved, buy those tickets, and don't forget, we got it.